Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Fireside Chats, where we engage with young leaders and youth led projects across IR, climate change, public policy, defense, diplomacy, human rights, and more. I'm your host, Ajitesh Vishwanath, the founder and interim chair at the Indian Foreign Policy Project, a youth led organization shaping new worldviews. In our second episode, we have Taneesha Sethi, the country director of ASEAN Youth Organization, India's chapter. Thank you for being here, Tanisha. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much for inviting me, Ajitesh. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to host you. Uh,
Thank
so
you.
we'll start with understanding what this organization is all about and knowing more about you and the vision and perhaps even the future of ASEAN Youth Organization. For everyone tuning in, AYO India is an official India chapter of ASEAN Youth Organization, which took root in the establishment of the ASEAN community in 2011. And AYO has been recognized by the ASEAN Secretariat as Southeast Asia's largest ground up nonprofit youth organization and development platform. And this entire sentence perhaps carries a lot of weight, Tanisha. So we'll start off with learning more about who you are as the helm, who are at the helm of this entire organization. So why don't you tell us about who you are, about your background, and what led you to uh, joining ASEAN and founding ASEAN?
Mm. Okay, so first of all, I think thank you for the lovely introduction. It's actually great, and I'm super proud to represent IO India here. So I will just give a little bit of context about how IO came into being, and especially IO India and where I am from, and how did I come to associate with the organization. So I am a political science graduate from Jindal School of International Affairs, right? I graduated last August. And IO India was something I never even heard of. So one of my very close friends, Pragya Seni, she was also coincidentally the country director for IO India before me. So she had this idea and she was associated with this organization. And one day she randomly texts me and says, "Hey, this is an organization. Do you want to join it? We can do so much of work together." And I was initially saying no. I was also about to say no because I was in a very um, terrible state. Personally, I was quite a mess back then, so I didn't want to take up new work, and I really did not want to do something that pushed me to the limit. So I was about to tell her. I said I had initially refused. I said, no, I'm not doing. I'm not interested in this. um, then sometime later she said, "You know what, you should do this because you really like IR and a lot of networking. So this is something that you should at least try." So I said okay, and I was quite sure, Ajitesh, that after 1 month I'll be leaving this organization. So I said okay, I started in July and I said I'm going to end in August. I'm not staying here. But I don't know. I met wonderful people. We were just two of us. We did not even have a team back then. So
Right.
we had to recruit people. And I remember there was this Shweta Arora. I'd like to give her a shout out. She's a very good influencer. She posts a lot of these career related internship opportunities. So she posted this recruitment. One day she randomly mailed us and said, this is something I thought I can talk to people about and maybe broadcast your internship opportunity. So I don't know who Shweta was. I think okay, maybe some random influencer trying to market us. Anyways, go for it. I'll send her the details, and we received 600 plus applications for just 15 vacancies
Wow.
from across India. And that's when I knew, okay, this is something big. Like I cannot take this lightly.
Right.
Um, and then of course we started. We did our first session, and we had like 60 plus participants in our first event, and then we grew from there. So IO itself is it's actually something bigger to me at least, and to a lot of our team members. It's something that we in India are planning to develop and rapidly expand because I feel that in India we still are quite at the nascent stage when it comes to promoting citizenship and
Mhm.
youth leadership, right? So this is something that we need to at least streamline. So yeah, that's how we kind of came together, and now I'm sitting here doing this interview. Hopefully, we'll go further from here.
Wow, a lot of interesting insights into
Yeah.
how building an organization does come about. Before we get
Mm.
to discussing that, you have also held multiple other roles, not just in public diplomacy, but in governance in general before joining AO India. How have those experiences helped you to basically manage where you are today?
So I think the first experience I got that helped me at IO India
Right.
was from my school, because I was a very shy and introverted girl in school, and I remember uh, I had a teacher in class 11.
Mm-hmm.
I opted for humanities in grade 11, and she was somebody who kind of exposed me to a lot of, you know, world affairs and the importance of voicing your opinion.
Right.
And I think that was the first baby step I took towards being vocal about issues. Uh, then later on, when I grew, of course, I had multiple roles. I did some program with Netri Foundation, and I really, really admire Kanchi. She's a role model to me. So I really like how they picked up gender in politics. That gave me some inclination on having gender inclusion in politics. So I picked up something from there. So tid and bits from here and there. I did a program by YLAC, which is Youth Leadership Active Citizenship. They taught me the importance of youth advocacy in issues and policy making. So if you want to, and I remember somebody said in that forum, they said that if you want to change politics, you have to enter politics to change it. So you cannot just stand at the frontiers of the entire political regime and say, okay, we need to change this and that. You need to enter politics, you need to understand how it works, and maybe then use it to make change. So that was something that helped me there. And most importantly, I think the experiences I got. So the more experiences I got, the more internships I took,
Mm-hmm.
the more programs I became associated with, the more confident I became of my vision. And I thought, okay, we have young people who want to do something, so why not bring them together? Yes, I learned skills, of course, writing and analysis, political, and policy making and everything. That was something I learned, of course. But more than that, it's the experience. And the confidence I got from working in all these places that gave me the courage. But I'll be very genuine and I'll say I've not done very substantial work. I still have a long way to go.
That's very inspiring indeed, in your journey. So we all know, right, ki, every new youth leader or even a new CEO of an organization uh, gives something new to the organization that they are part of. What do you bring as the country director to AO India?
I would say, the most important part is confidence to young girls out there that women can lead. Because I have seen and I admire a lot of policy organizations, Ajitesh, I really do in India. Uh, and I really like their work. So I don't want to question their credibility. They are amazing, they're much bigger than us, and we inspire to work with them, even just collaborate with them. But a lot of organizations still don't have a women centric role. They're led by men, and I'm not being a male chauvinist here, but I think women are always disadvantaged when it comes to politics, because you're left out of a lot of narrative building.
Interesting.
And that is where I think I come handy, because I kind of set an example, or if not an example, when women see, and a lot of our team, my country director, previous one, Pragya, was a female, I am a female, and we have a lot of promising male candidates too, but we also have very prominent, extremely hardworking female interns. Uh, and I know a lot of female interns who have joined our organization, interned with us, completed their internship, and now they've started their own ventures,
Mhm.
albeit very small, but they're still trying, right? So I think that vision that women can lead when it comes to politics, it's of course a dirty field, and it's always women are advised to stay away from it. But when it comes to young political organizations, maybe that is a vision that I said, that girls can do something more beyond just the traditional roles they're confined to.
A wonderful role that you are playing there, and I'm sure people are being inspired all over. Um, and all of these sentiments that you have expressed so far highlight a very deep vision for what AO is supposed to be and what it will be in the future. So,
Mhm.
what led you to basically build a chapter of an international organization which India is technically not a part of here in Southeast Asia?
Hmm. Interesting. So we, just to clarify, we did have IO India before us, right? So we had IO India, but it kind of, I think, after a point of time, maybe it sort of the speed of growing
Mhm.
stopped. So I did not even know about IO India back then, but we did have a chapter. But I think one thing that I learned is I've always been interested in IR, right? And even I was wondering, why am I here with ASEAN and India is not even a part of this region, right? So why
Right,
are we here? Uh, but the more you enter into this, the more you realize there's so many similarities between India and ASEAN countries. And more than that, it's the culture of growing together that holds us, right? So
right,
I realized that, I mean, yeah, of course, India, and a lot of people are surprised, by the way. They're like, India is not even a part of this, but how come your chapter is like so active when it comes to a lot of these events? Like, you guys must be doing something fishy. And I tell them, no, it's just, of course, we have our own regional identity. We are associated with IO. So we do a lot of ASEAN work. But that's why I also make sure that our work is also very India youth centric, because at the end of the day, we are the India chapter, right? And my mission is to bring more awareness amongst the Indian youth of what ASEAN is as an organization. So the question you asked, a lot of people also ask, which is why we are here to kind of spread awareness on this issue. Hopefully, some of your viewers will also know this, and maybe just tell them that. Of course, regional identities matter, but India is also very significantly involved with the ASEAN countries when it comes to trade, when it comes to a lot of cultural understanding, when it comes to a lot of exchanges, student exchanges.
right.
So there's some more than what you can see.
What is perhaps the challenges that you have faced so
Mm.
far in bridging that kind of gap between these two populations?
First, definitely would be lack of awareness between both the sides.
Right,
Um, so definitely the Indian audience, of course, people who are IR buffs, they know what ASEAN is, and a lot of general audience also knows.
right.
But for them, the understanding is you have ASEAN and then you have India, so they are just two different
Mhm.
entities. They do not collide. So bridging that gap is important. The second, I think, would be definitely it would be the cultural gaps between. We have a lot of commonalities, we have a lot of similarities, but I think one thing that I just like to give a shout out to the Indian audience is, uh, India itself is so diverse, so diverse. I remember this is one example of how our strategies also become different, right?
Mhm.
So I was meeting the Indonesian Markom team, the social media team, one day, and I told them, how do we grow this chapter? Because you guys are doing great work. And she said, why don't you use Hindi language for all your official communication on social media? And for them, of course, because they do a lot of these posts in Indonesian language, right? Because they have a significant Indonesian population.
Right.
You have other languages, but they are mostly in the frontiers. And I told my team, I said, listen, we are not going to do Hindi, because if we do Hindi, the South gets ignored, the Northeast gets ignored. There are so many places where Hindi is not prominent, right? It's mostly the northern belt that you're talking about, the urban classes. So what's the point of having IO when you're just working for urban people? So that is one way where you can just sense how we have to strategize differently, because our cultures are so diverse. And the third, of course, would be in general, if you're working in any organization, is pushing people to do more, because a lot of people after a point of time, they're exhausted, and brilliant minds in my team, but after a point of time they're like, maybe we need to do something more. We're not getting that gratification that you get when it comes to doing work. So pushing them to do more, and when you're not paying them with monetary compensation, of course the challenges become more. When you have such a big team, I have people from Kerala, I have people from the Northeast, I have people from across India. So kind of bringing them together and telling them it's like a mini India we have, and telling them that this is something we have in commonality, let's work towards this goal. So these are some of the challenges I usually face when I'm working.
Interesting. About the point of bringing together different sects and population of India as a country, and you did talk about some language barriers of not able to use Hindi. So you do use English as a language, right?
Yeah, we do.
And since English is still, while largely spoken in India, it's still constricted to educated sectors of society. How do you basically plan in the future to connect with people who are not educated, who are in the grassroots level of our populations, and who would benefit from engaging in such activities and initiatives that bridge together different countries?
Mm. Well, we are actually starting doing that. We've started with that work. I understand and I accept it. I remember once somebody told me, and this is a thought I had. Uh, it's a privilege to advocate. You cannot expect somebody who's starving at the roadside to advocate for a cause like women education. It's not a concern for them. So, just bringing that context here, I accept my privileges. I understand that I come from a very affluent background.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I'm not lost touch with the reality. I know I see my house helps. I see people on the road walking. I see a lot of people not being able to have English as a medium of communication. And even if they are most, it's not just people who are uneducated or people who are not from the very affluent backgrounds who don't use Hindi. A lot of people still use their cultural language because that's what they are connected to the most, right?
Exactly.
So I love Bengalis for how they love their language. So they will use language, but we know they speak English than most sections of the society, better than anybody else, perhaps. So we are doing that. We understand that gap, which is why we've started our workshops. So we do a volunteering program every month, and we give them different tasks to do. One of them is to conduct workshops with underprivileged communities.
Right.
And the way you do that is we ideally tell them to do it in the language of their choice, right? So we've just started this in Delhi because it's the heart of the capital. We want to expand, of course. Uh, but a lot of our volunteers have gone to bastis and slums and those areas, gotten in touch with children, gotten in touch with population there, and conducted workshops in their language, which is mostly Hindi, what they use in Delhi. Also understanding that Delhi does not represent the entire country.
Mhm.
Um, we are also planning to have our own project in the Northeast where we are doing something similar, but at the same time something unique. So we'll get in touch with perhaps the tribal communities there, the population there, and our own team from the Northeast will work with them.
Right.
So of course in their culture, keeping in mind their context and everything. So this is one way we make sure that we bridge that gap.
Interesting. We do look forward to having those initiatives come out in real
Yeah.
life. Um, and another question about diversity and inclusion is that we as a country, while quite diverse, are very different. Different parts are quite different. And it's even in the real socio-political realms of current times, we do see kind of huge gaps between our different populations. How do you, as who try to represent India and who try to bridge India as a whole to another group of nations which are still far away. How important do you think youth organizations in general are, and what role do they play in bridging these kind of gaps, and how do they do that so in the first place?
They're very important, especially when you consider India's population.
Mhm.
It's quite huge. We have a significant young population, right? Um, and that is, of course, keeping in mind that, as you said, we have a lot of diversity when it comes to this young population. And in fact, political ideologies is something that's so different.
Exactly.
Um, so bringing them together, a lot of people don't agree with us, right? Honestly, they don't agree with the vision. They don't agree with what we stand for, and we are non-partisan, by the way. So they don't associate with our work, but that's okay. But more than anything else, I think young organizations, their main role is just to show people that you can do something,
Right.
right? And giving them that sort of cushion, social protection, so that they do something,
Right.
uh, and they have some organization, some support to fall back upon. A lot of people want to do a lot of stuff, and it's not just social or community change. It's also a lot of work in, let's say, entrepreneurship or in a lot of skill development sectors.
Right.
But they don't have any support. They don't have any social cushion to fall back upon, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's important that young organizations, this is how they step in. At the same time, I think when you're talking about connecting young people with India, with the young people of ASEAN countries and the world, you also need to have a coalition of young people of different social organizations together. Our organization, of course, we are doing a very small work. It's just a drop in the ocean, but it's much more significant and becomes much more important and I would say crucial when we join hands with a lot of other local communities and a lot of other organizations.
Right.
So you can have youth organizations; they are very important, but they fall flat if they don't come together. A and B when they lose touch with reality. when you're just here to increase your social media reach and followers, and not understand how important it is that your content is making sense with the masses, your programs are actually delivering on what they stand for,
Right.
then I think even the best of youth organizations cannot flourish.
That's a very interesting sentiment that I do share. And like chats such as these do come, like bring different organizations together. And we
Exactly.
should have more of these chats, not just from IFPP, but in general, and to host a lot of other collaborations between a variety of youth organizations in India. I think the very idea of being the number one, I think, is hampering that kind of development, and
Yes.
instead of having a shared vision of uniting our youth and uniting us as a population. I think that's what I do admire about your organization, Tanisha. Thank you for those wonderful statements. Moving towards the role that AO India does play, what are the key policy areas, perhaps, or even areas that you are really focused on or will be focused on in the near future?
One, of course, is community development.
Right,
And when we are talking about community development, we have this so much work to do, honestly, but we have just pushed our focus on three main topics, which is mental health,
right,
considering it's just rapidly important now that we talk about it,
of course.
environment, and of course, gender equality. So these are three areas we focus on within the community development spectrum. When it comes to issues like young leadership and active citizenship, so we have started reaching out to colleges, different colleges, people in these universities, to kind of bring them to talk about important topics, right?
Right.
So we had an election campaign last month, a few months back, honestly, where we reached out to colleges in Delhi. Our volunteers did that, and we conducted an interview with them. What do you think about the elections, and are you voting, and why do you think it's important to vote? So people know this, it's very general stuff, but the important point is we have stopped talking about it because we've become so attuned to the entire system,
Mhm.
not just political but the entire social political system, that we have stopped talking about it, and we have started taking our democratic principles for granted. So this especially comes with the new audience, right? That's just almost, I would say, not very enthusiastic about these processes. So bringing them to talk about it is one way. The other focus is things that we're focusing on is we want to work something out when it comes to policy. So bringing people to talk about policy issues, and kind of bringing them together to even take matters like legislate on important policy
Right.
topics, uh, develop their research abilities, their skills, not just soft skills but also hard skills.
Mhm.
So maybe research methodology. So we also talk about skill development here. There's so much work we are doing, honestly, but we want to take this forward, right? So I really want to do something more towards IR and diplomacy, because India still has very limited organizations which are doing great work when it comes to diplomacy and IR. So maybe we want to give them a first hand experience or a taste of what diplomacy looks like from a day to day perspective, right? People's diplomacy is something we really believe in, when it comes to increasing our reach within ASEAN countries through people to people diplomacy or public diplomacy. So those are the frontiers as of now that we are targeting. And of course, we will take them to a much higher level ground as we progress.
These are wonderful key areas, and I love that you did focus on mental health and community development in general, because these kind of topics are not talked about much or are suppressed, at least in sadly in our cultures, and not just in Indian culture, but in East, even Southeast Asian cultures. And it's glad that people are talking about it, and organizations as a whole are taking that up as an initiative. And I do remember watching your content when I came across them on Instagram one day, on people asking about
Oh,
elections and what they're thinking about it. So it was quite an interesting thing to watch. I think it's absolutely necessary because we all, as you said, we forget that it's a whole thing. It's participating in these elections or participating in civil society or democratic
mm,
institutions in general is not just a thing of like privilege or prestige. It's our right, and we should exercise
oh,
that right.
mm,
Coming back to SAARC in general, we do see a lack of action, not just there regular international meetings, but also in their youth initiatives and impact. Do you feel that there is a future, in your opinion, of SAARC's role in the region, given that we are so divided as South Asia?
Well, we are having some things that we're doing. Of course, IO is not doing because we are not associated with SARC.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but on a personal level, one of my professors from college, she has her own journal called Online Journal for Peace and Conflict Resolution that exclusively focuses on SARC region.
Right,
And we recently concluded a first summit where we brought speakers from all the SARC countries together and had them talk about this very issue, that why are we not talking about SARC as, as an identity, uh, and why are we not talking about regional cooperation and peace building mechanisms. Whenever you hear about Southeast Asia, it's always war, it's always conflict, it's always narco terrorism, it's always border security issues, trafficking, all the negative words, right? There's no positive coming out. So this is just one very small initiative we've taken. This is something that comes to my mind on a personal level. Uh, Other than that, I think what we need most importantly is when it comes to SARC population, it's important that we use social media and culture, our unifying culture, to bridge that gap when it comes to having more young people talk about this.
right,
So I know people in India who watch lots of dramas from these countries. uh, I listen to Coke Studio myself, and I some of my Pakistani singers, they're my absolute favorites, right? Uh, this is just one way you appreciate each other's culture. You see, and not just Pakistan, you see countries beyond what they are shown to be.
right.
So if we use culture as a unifying factor, perhaps, then I think that is where you bridge that gap. But work is being done in some level. It's very small, but at least at least we've started. So I think that's positive.
Right. Interesting, interesting views. I think I do agree with that. Youth organizations and public diplomacy are perhaps the way we can start or even initiate these kind of conversations and bring all of us together. And
Hmm.
culture, I think you rightly said, is perhaps the biggest focal point of bringing and starting these discussions. Um, Now, going ahead with what are the issues that we are currently facing in current social political realities, do you think it's easier or difficult, to be honest, to start organizations or to be a part of such organizations which bring so many people together?
Um, if you're talking about uh, bringing people from across borders together, it's a little tricky,
Right.
but you can still do it. But nonetheless, I think it's still easier. It's much easier. And I think with the younger population, because uh, we have now, for example, you see Indian audience watching K dramas. I am an addict myself. What that does is it kind of I get comfortable with the idea of having a Korean population, right? I am somehow comfortable with that country now. I love their cuisine, I love their food. So that is one way that, because the young audience has been using and interacting not just through social media, not through their culture, but also through youth exchange programs, through a
Right.
lot of these let's say you have muns and all these things. We are associating with one another across borders. So from the perspective of, say, IO India, it's easier for us to work on that front. But the main challenge is, how do you sustain it? Because at the end of the day, we all are humans and young people, and our priorities differ when we grow up. All of us in our 20s are like, we want to do something, we really want to do something, right? In that Rang De Basanti mode, revolutionary mode. But when you grow older, your priorities change. For example, you have your own set of ideas, and somehow life hits you, right? So how do you sustain it is the question for me. If you ask me personally, Ajitesh, I've never had any problem starting organizations. I've always had beautiful people who were very passionate about it, and I'm still in touch with them. The problem is, how do you sustain it? A single person cannot sustain it. If I today I'm just here to sustain IO India, I don't think it would have survived today, because it was the collective effort of everybody,
Right.
every team. And every now and then I get messages from my interns, from my team, from my heads, why are we not doing this? We should do this. Let's start this, let's do this. So that's what keeps you growing, and that what keeps you moving forward. So it's easy in today's world and age. You have to be a little tricky to bypass certain government, and not just government, but also certain, societal norms. You have to be tricky to outrun them
Right.
and maybe overcome them. But the problem is, and the bigger question is, how do you sustain it rather than starting?
Right. Very interesting end thought there. Coming off from sustainability and of sustaining an organization as a whole, you did talk about how AO India fell off some years in between, and then it was revitalized by you and your previous country director. Do you feel that's a danger to AO in the future once you perhaps leave AO India? Or do you think that you have successfully established and revitalized it enough for it to continue for a lot of time to come?
Mhm. I'll give you an example to maybe answer this. Um, I had left IO India in February, as a matter of fact.
Interesting.
Um, I did. Because I had, of course, as I said before, right, we have a lot of personal commitments when we are leading an organization.
Right.
I had two. I had so much of academic commitments, and I had a lot of other work. And I do work. It's actually a mistake to think that I'm just working as IO India. I'm actually working with the UNDP. I'm working with a lot of other organizations as well. I have my own research projects that go on.
Right.
So I had left IO India, and my country director was also, she was the one, Pragya was the one who was holding it together. Uh, but we did see a lot of people who were initially at the back front coming together and leading the charge. We had an event that we were doing with Yash Agarwal, who leads Public Policy India. And nobody knew how we will take this forward because I had left, apparently last moment. So somebody and a lot of people came up together and they worked as a team. So I rested my doubts then. I knew that the people I have in my team are trustworthy, they are very genuine. So I don't see a future threat to IO India once I leave. A, I don't have plans on leaving right now. And B, even if I do, say, even if I do after a point of time, I will be very certain that the mission we have started here, it's going to go on. And IO India, the one that had, I had envisioned, it's going to go forward. So there's no threat. It's only for people who don't value their leadership or who don't trust their leadership skills that see it that, maybe once I leave, I've not made people resonate with my cause. So once I leave, they'll also leave. So it's only people who are quite unsure of their capabilities might believe. So I believe otherwise.
That's an interesting take, and we do hope that AO India does continue to flourish. Like thinking about the journey so far, what is the one initiative that you are quite proud of and that you feel would be perhaps the biggest initiative that AO India will lead in the future as well?
One initiative I'm proud of definitely would be the volunteering program we do every month.
Right.
Um, because we allow people to go on ground and do something they're passionate about. And IO India is not just community development. We are not an NGO, as much as I'd like to call myself one. We are also youth IR policy think tank kind of an organization.
Right.
So we have, uh, when we do the volunteering program, we make sure that we also cover a lot of policy perspectives also.
Right.
We do a lot of this uh, on ground news features that we do. In fact, we did one recently where one of our team members went to examine roads in her locality and why was it an issue from a policy perspective, right?
Right.
So that is something I'm proud of. There are a lot of other things I'm proud of. That is one thing I'm really really super proud of, which tells me I'm in the right track. But the biggest thing, it's not here, it's yet to come. So I would like to believe that we have much more bigger things to achieve.
That's amazing. And now thinking towards the future, Tanisha, I'm curious, what is the future of AO India? Where do you see yourself as a person, first of all, and then AO India as a larger organization in the next 5 years?
Hmm. I think as a person, I'd see myself doing more such fire chat series. Uh, I guess doing more such things, and not just speaking, but also, like I said, inspiring women to take action, especially women, and not just women, young people in general, from whichever community, LGBTQI community you are, you're from any community, from any socio political milieu,
Right.
just inspiring them that they see me, hopefully, and then they say, okay, we can also do this. From a professional perspective, from IO India's future in the next 5 years, I would say, I would want to see, and we are trying to do that, is just expand our reach beyond Delhi, because Delhi is still, I say, a very mini India, but does not represent whole India.
Right.
So I really want to work in the Northeast. So doing work in the Northeast, working with the tribal areas in Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh, uh, maybe some parts of Orissa, that is something we would want to do. So having IO teams, and being that developed that you have IO teams in different parts of India who are doing work, and then uh, you know doing something that's important,
Right.
most important level, and telling people that you can take charge. So there's nothing wrong with dreaming about change in your 20s. That is something that I think I would want to see IO India in the next 5 years.
Amazing, amazing. So of course, both you and AO India has had quite a journey so far, and we did talk about, and you did hint to a variety of advice that you want to perhaps give to communities and youth leaders, and upcoming youth leaders who are hoping to build up their own organizations and from scratch across South Asia. So, what advice would you give to these young people who are perhaps listening into this conversation?
Okay, I'm here taking advice from people. I don't think I want to advise people because I'm still in that stage where people are advising me. Um, but I think my message, I would rather say message, not an advice, because it comes from a power dynamic situation. My message to everybody would be A, do not hesitate, because when you start something, it can be something very small. Don't just think it's not important. It is. Even if it affects one person, it is important.
Mhm.
I started my first volunteering program with just three interns, and only one was able to finish it. So even then I went going, because then I knew if that was one person, and that one person became a head, volunteer head, and she worked great. I mean, she was amazing. So even if one person is being impacted by your work positively, of course, please do it. Go on and don't hesitate to fall back. There's nothing wrong. I mean, at the most, it's a very, even if it's a very small organization, if it fails, and who's going to know about it, right? So I think take that charge. A, B would definitely be think and appreciate, and most importantly, accept that you're privileged if you're advocating, because unless you acknowledge, I understand a lot of people want to come across as relatable,
Right.
so they don't accept their privileges. And I think that's important, that you accept your privilege, that I might not know all ground realities in India or the world, and I accept that I come from a place where I don't have to encounter them every day. So just be down to earth and accept. I guess that would be second, and third would be network with people, most importantly, because you cannot sustain anything in the long run alone.
Right.
I'm sure uh, IO India would have not survived. It was not if it was not for the support I got from everybody. Even people in Indonesia have been so helpful. They've been very helpful, and they do, really value us here. It's not just that IO India is not part of ASEAN formally,
Mhm.
so they don't appreciate us. They do. They do amazing work. In fact, I think they really, really love having us here. Uh, and I've had people, the person who started IO India, I'd like to give him a shout out, Abhishek. He's the one who helped me the most. Pragya was one who really helped me. I had all my heads, I had all my interns. I mean, I could list everybody, but due to paucity of time, I think I'll stay there. So everybody, it's it was because of them that IO was able to sustain, and it's with every youth organization initiative that goes out. Network with people who resonate with your cause and who are willing to take that
Right.
leap with you. And not just the starting leap, but sustaining it. If you leave, like you, Ajitesh had asked, if I leave, do I see a threat to IO in the future? if I don't resonate with like-minded people, of course that's going to happen. Because here they're just for the short term. If they don't believe in my cause, they will leave IO India at some point, right?
Right.
Or any organization. So networking with people and coming across with the right people, the most important part. Last, I would say have faith and have fun, because this is a very interesting thing. You're doing it for people, you're doing it for community development. Don't chase likes, and don't just put your organization just limited to having how many likes you've got on your recent post or all those things. They do give you a boost of validation, but that should not matter, and that should not judge who you are and decide what your organization stands for. So these are some of the messages I think all the young audience should kind of take.
Okay, thank you so much, Tanisha, for those wonderful statements. And I think our young audiences would definitely appreciate them when they start building their organizations. And perhaps one day they'll even message you saying that you were perhaps their inspiration to joining in.
I still get messages like these, and I think that keeps me moving. So I'm hoping, even if they don't message me, but they take inspiration from this, or they just take a cue that we can do this as well. And I think that would be enough. So I will of course wait for the messages, but I don't expect them, of course. And I'd also like to really thank my family for being such a support. I think it would have not been possible if it was not for their uh, encouragement, and as well as their pushing me towards, to do better. So thank you so much for everybody who kind of really was involved in the process, and we hope that we grow even more from now on.
All right, wonderful statements. With that, I think we can come to the end of our fireside chat with Tanisha and AO. Before we go, Tanisha, how can our viewers engage with AO India? Where can we find them and basically be a part of this organization?
Great. So one would definitely be engaging with a young monthly volunteering program, which we do every month. So for viewers interested in engaging with us, if you are very passionate, if you're very promising, we find excuses to have you on board. So we don't care if we have vacancies, we don't. I will make a new random position and bring people in. So if you want to engage with us still, I think social media is the best way you can do it. LinkedIn and Instagram is where we are most active. We also have our own website, which will possibly go out soon. So we will have a new website where you can engage with our content. But do look out on our social media time to time. Just check for the updates, and hopefully you will, find ways to enter IO India.
Awesome, brilliant. Thank you for joining us, Tanisha. It has been an interesting
Thank
chat,
you.
and thank you for your candor. This has been Fireside Chats. Tune in next Thursday for our chat with our next guest. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.